Hi readers, welcome back to Reading Realm. Today I'm going to be reviewing another of Natasha Preston's books, The Haunting. I was discussing this author with a classmate of mine who's also read some of her books, and we were noticing that every single one of her covers always has a flower on it. So here's the flower for this one. I think it's a carnation. Carnation, chrysanthemum, something. I get them confused. But, no, I think that's a chrysanthemum. Anyway, The Haunting. This author, as I've talked about in my other reviews of some of her books, I have some issues with the way she ends her books. And this one actually was one that I'm conflicted about this ending, because again, it's a cliffhanger ending, and I hate it. I want to know what's happening. This is so... I think someone else dies in the last word of this book, but I don't know who it is. And that's why I'm annoyed about this book. So, in this book, basically, there was a serial killer event that happened leading up to Halloween the year prior to when this book starts, and this book starts pretty much on the anniversary of that. Like, it starts in that week leading up to Halloween and the days that people were killed last year. And the main character is a girl named Penny, and her ex-boyfriend's father was the person who was arrested for murdering everyone a year ago. And so, ultimately, as you might expect with a murder mystery, it's been a year, but another person ends up dead. And all of these people being killed are high schoolers. But another person shows up dead. And then people start to think that it's a copycat killer who is imitating the father who had killed these, I think it was 5 students, the year prior. And the main character doesn't think, basically the whole town has kind of begun to hate the kids of the man who was arrested for killing people, because they have decided that his guilt also shunned the kids, basically. And so, essentially, the entire town has kind of tried to ignore Nash, who is the son, and Grace, who is the daughter of this killer. And so immediately when people are suspecting a copycat killer, people start to think that Nash is the one doing it, because like father, like son. And the main character doesn't believe that. She doesn't think that he would kill anyone. And she also doesn't think, she's still kind of shaken up that this man who she would go over to his house and he would make her hot chocolate killed these people. And so she doesn't want to have to shun Nash, but her parents are telling her, never speak to him, never do anything with him. But after this all starts happening and another body is found, she ends up reaching out to him to make sure that he's okay, because if this trauma is still happening in the town and other people are still being affected, he's going to be affected worse, because his dad is the one who was arrested for this a year ago, and now it's happening again. Anyway, the killer from a year ago had a very distinct mask. And Penny begins to see a person in that mask around town. And again, it is the week leading up to Halloween, so at first people kind of write it off when she mentions, like, this person in a mask, kind of being like, oh, well, it's Halloween. Maybe they're just dressing as him. It's distasteful, but, you know, could just be a generic Halloween mask. And she keeps seeing it, and she's like, this is not, something's not right with this. And more people end up showing up dead. And in various of the times people have shown up dead, Nash has been there, in the vicinity. But some of the times when it's happened, he's also been with Penny directly, and she doesn't think that he had a chance to kill anyone. And she doesn't want to believe he's killing people, but the rest of the town is very suspicious of him. Personally, I liked this book a lot more, or I don't know if I'd say a lot more. The ending of this book didn't anger me quite as much as the ending of The Island. It still ended very cliffhangery, very unfinished, unanswered questions. But it felt a little bit less cheated out of an ending compared to The Island. I don't know if that makes sense. I will say with this one, because in her other books that I have reviewed so far, I had suspicions about who it was, and sometimes they changed slightly throughout the book. But in this one, I genuinely had no idea who it was. I wanted to believe it wasn't Nash, but at the same time, I didn't know for sure. And so when it ultimately is revealed who it was, I wasn't expecting it at all. And so that was really fun and exciting for me, personally. I liked that I didn't know and that I couldn't tell, because I think, especially because I've read several of her books now, I was worried that it was going to get into a pattern where it would get predictable about patterns of who, like, the type of character that it is, but it doesn't seem like that's happening. The other two, I did guess correctly as I was reading it. This one I didn't. So that's fun, because this was the third book that I read by her. I will say, I think these protagonists, and I've mentioned it before, they're a little bit dumb in terms of, there's a serial killer. I'm gonna walk downtown alone at night as a high school girl, which personally pissed me off a little bit, because that is so dumb to do. Most high school girls that I know, or at least that, like, I interacted with in high school, wouldn't even have wanted to walk downtown alone at midnight without a serial killer. I have admitted it to my parents, so they know now, but when I was 17, I did walk 3 miles at 2 a.m. to go to the library and turn in a book. So I think I might be the exception. But also that wasn't downtown. That was to the library. It was like 2 or 3 miles and back. But you know, I think that's the sign of how much of a bookworm I am, that my idea of sneaking out at 2 a.m. is to turn in a book to the library. Anyway, it did bother me that this character is being so stupid to sneak out completely alone at night after a body's been found. Not far from where she was going to the place where she was supposed to meet someone in the middle of the night. Anyway, it's stupid protagonist in horror movies and books. Stereotypical stupid protagonist. There were other moments where I did feel like she was actually smart, but that part, that's so bad. If you're ever in any situation that even remotely resembles a horror movie or a horror book or a thriller book, do not walk to somewhere at midnight alone through yards full of Halloween decorations with silhouettes that could be actual people. Anyway, yeah, I did like this book. Again, there were certain things that I was annoyed by, particularly the stupidness of that one scene and the way the ending was. But I think I am used to the way these books end now by her, so I went into this book expecting that the ending was going to upset me and frustrate me, and it did. But I was also prepared for it too, so maybe that's why it feels like it doesn't have as big an effect as when I read The Island or The Fear, just because I was like, she's ended it on these really bad cliffhangers twice, it's gonna happen again. But I liked it. I did think that it was an interesting premise of the kind of the copycat killer coming back, and is it the same person? Like, was the original person who was caught just wrong, but probably not, so then is this someone imitating? But then that person starts to kind of go off of the pattern, because the first couple of people that were killed in the real time of this book were done in very similar ways to the way it was done a year before. But then it gets unpredictable, and they realize this might not just be like a perfect copycat, something else is going on. Which I thought was really interesting, that idea. I did definitely feel like these characters, some of them were were a little bit naive. But again, they're high schoolers in a thriller book. What can you expect, really? I mean, there were moments where I wanted to throw the book across the room because they were being really dumb. But I didn't. There's only one book I've ever thrown across a room, and that was because it pissed me off really badly in the first couple pages about Pluto not being a planet anymore. But I do recommend this one. If the ending being really unfinished and implies with the last word someone else is killed would bother you, don't read it, because that is how this ends. But it doesn't imply who died, which is what bothers me too. But I think it could be one of three, one of two. I think it could be one of 4 people that just died. Anyway, that is my review of The Haunting by Natasha Preston. Thank you so much for watching. If you've read this book, let me know what you think. And if you want to read it, let me know what is making it seem interesting to you. That will be all for today. Thank you so much. I hope you liked it. Keep reading. Bye!